Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today we're going to talk about the myth of good and bad food and the myth of calling foods good and bad. Essentially, that's what we're going to talk about today, and how those types of labels impact your esteem, your mindset, just your sense of freedom, your sense of trust, your sense of security with food, just your ability to get to the place where we all want to get to with food, which is not think about it, right? Enjoy it, not think about it, not have it be something that's heavy on our minds, not something that we feel creates heaviness in our bodies. Ultimately, we want to get to the place where food is kind of like B-roll in our life. And I feel like the media, I think that the marketing engines have exploited this concept of good and bad foods for sales. And I'm just going to say that. So I think the idea of good and bad foods, if you have that, it's not your fault because you've been told that narrative likely your whole life. And so today I'm just going to take a stab at trying to support you in reframing the idea of good and bad foods, because ultimately what labeling foods as good and bad does is keeps us in this very rigid black and white mindset. And a black and white mindset, black and white thinking, though we subconsciously, so our subconscious mind loves black and white thinking because it makes our subconscious feel safe. But what it really does is it creates this internal stress that often becomes a trigger for behaviors that are destructive, whether that's binging or mindsets that are destructive, right? Like low self-worth, depression, all these different things. If we really look under the hood of a lot of things, black and white thinking is at the root. It's not the only root, but it is at the root with other things of some of these mindsets and behaviors and ways of being that we often think are innate to who we are, but it's not. It's really just a mindset. And overcoming this black and white mindset, it's not just deciding not to have a black and white mindset, because like I said, the black and white mindset makes your nervous system on some subconscious level feel safe. So shifting out of a black and white mindset is not just deciding not to think about things in black and white anymore. It's not even seeing that you see things in black and white and then being like, oh yeah, that isn't good. Let me change. It's not even as easy as that. It's on a nervous system behavioral level. Your nervous system needs to find safety in something else before it can let go of the black and white mindset. And that often takes time. And in that time, our nervous system is going to feel unsafe. And that's just part of the process. And I think that where people end up struggling the most is in this middle ground. And so stay till the end of the episode, because I'm going to share something with you that is going to help you in this middle ground part of it all. So stay till the end of the episode. All right, so let's talk about black and white thinking. So like I said, I used to have black and white thinking. I feel so grateful. And one of the ways that I feel as though I have overcome and healed from emotional eating, from binging and purging, from the yo-yo diet culture is that I don't consider foods black and white anymore. I don't consider foods good or bad. I don't think there's right foods. I don't think there's wrong foods, right? Back in the day, I would label foods good because they were low calorie, fat-free, right? If you're born in the 90s, you know what I'm saying, fat-free. Ultimately, the fat-free foods ended up having so much sugar, which, sugar is fine, but, like, again, what I'm saying is this is a marketing ploy, and I would consider others bad because of my concept of it. And what I learned along the way, I think the main point was that I realized that moralizing food, thinking of it as good or bad, giving it this label, giving it all this power, just keeps us trapped. Like I said in the beginning, it keeps us small, it keeps us trapped, it keeps us in guilt, it keeps us in shame, and it can lead to self-sabotage. It can lead to sabotage with eating. It can lead to sabotage in other areas of life because we are consistently living with guilt and shame. So let's talk today about why labeling food can be so harmful and how we could start to reframe the mindset around that in a way that's more balanced, that's more forgiving, and ultimately feels a lot more freeing. And so starting with this idea of good and bad foods and where this idea of good and bad food comes from. We talked about how this is a narrative that I'm pretty sure so many of us have. I'm pretty sure that a lot of our caregivers had this concept about food, and so we were taught this. And some foods might not be as high nutritional value as other foods. However, it doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it bad. So if I ate a salad, I thought I was good. But here's the thing about salad, right? What I realized is sometimes salad can be packed with so much of the stuff, so much of the toppings, that it's not even a high nutritional value food anymore. But we think that we're eating a salad and that it's good. I can't tell you how many people I have seen over the last decade plus, 13 so years that I've been doing this work with women, where women would come into my office or, when I was seeing just, private clients at the time, or women that would share in a group coaching call, one of my programs, that they ate salads, acai bowls. I'm not going to call out certain food companies, delivery food companies. I'm not going to call out anybody, but these like healthy food companies, and they're eating these foods and they are gaining weight. They are having skin breakouts. They are having indigestion or difficulty with digestion. Like there's all of these symptoms that are coming with quote unquote healthy foods, and they're avoiding the quote unquote bad foods like pizza or ice cream or bread or sandwiches or, pasta, penne alla vodka, right? Like they're avoiding these things because their idea of it is that that's bad, but my salad bowl, my grain bowl, my acai bowl, my bowl, bowls became so huge, is good. And actually it's really not the case. And this mistake, this misdirection of assigning morality to a food or to a meal, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. And this is the dangerous part of the good versus bad dichotomy, because it really narrows our world. It narrows our experience. And when we start categorizing foods in extremes, or we start listening to what other people in the marketplace tell us about what is healthy and what's not healthy. For example, I think there was this trend where nut butters were all the rage. People would put nut butter in every single thing. Now, nut butter has healthy properties for sure, but eating nut butter in the volume that people are eating nut butter in, it creates issues for some people. It can be inflammatory for some people. It's very dense. Doesn't mean it's bad. So I would explain this to people and they'd be like, oh, so is nut butter bad? And I'm like, it's not bad. It's just foods are not good or bad. They're just in context. And so we have to think about food in context, because if we don't think about food in context and we don't have the skills of putting food into context so that we don't have to label food as good or bad, it sets us up for the cycle of deprivation, binging, right? It sets us up for experiencing our relationship to food from an outside view, an outside in view, rather from an inside out view, right? And the outside in view is the view where we are like logic and strategy is taking over our food choices. And the logic and strategy is coming from some outside narrative, outside advice, rather than our inside context driving, which is something else entirely that I'm going to go into at the end of the episode or towards the end of the episode as we get closer to that part. And this cycle of having that outside in view where you make your eating choices based on some concept of what's good and what's bad, of what's healthy and what's not healthy, it creates shame. Because if we don't do it quote unquote right, we start to think, why am I failing? Why can't I control myself? What am I doing wrong? We take on this heavy responsibility and we're like, why am I doing this wrong? I'm supposed to be doing everything right. I'm eating all the good stuff. I'm eating all the good food. And then what would happen would be I would just kind of give it up altogether, right? I would just be like, okay, this isn't working. I'm so frustrated. I'm just going to have one day where I just give in to everything. And that's how we stay stuck. That is how we stay stuck. And so we don't want to tie our self-worth. We don't want to tie our self-value. We don't want to tie our trust in how our body is going to look and feel to good and bad food. Because food isn't moral. It doesn't have the power to make something right or wrong. It's just food. And so when we start seeing it that way, everything starts to shift. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to start experiencing food as neutral, right? All food is neutral. Doesn't have moral value. It's not something that's good. It's not something that's bad. It's not something that we should eat. It's not something that we shouldn't eat, because that's not going to be the template in which we make decisions about how we're going to eat, right? Food it's a substance. Can it be yummy? Can we enjoy its sensations, its pleasure? Can we get excited for it? Can we plan? Can we look forward to eating food? Sure, definitely. Can it sometimes even be comforting? Of course. But there's no good or bad food. There's no right or wrong. And so one of the biggest shifts that I made in my own journey, and now that I teach, biggest thing that I teach is to stop judging myself for what I ate, to just turn off that channel inside my brain where I think to myself, is this good to eat? Because what I learned is that if I wanted it, and if I was intentional about it, and I was connected to my hunger and fullness cues, and I, again, like there was intention, and I understood the difference between desire and a craving, and I was in context with my eating choice, I found so much more freedom in my eating experience and in my decisions with food and my eating choices. Right? So instead of thinking, oh, is this food good or bad? I was like, am I hungry? I was like, am I satisfied? Right? So it was more an inside out thing. Do I want this? And if I want it, I'm going to let myself have it with some regulations, obviously. And those regulations, it's important to know how to pull the lever on those regulations for yourself where you don't feel like you're depriving yourself. Okay, and that's something that's really, really important to know how to do. And that's something that I teach within my sober eating framework. How can we make eating choices that come from the inside out that allow for everything to be included? So you can eat whatever you want, but you don't find yourself feeling guilty and you don't find yourself like overindulging because you're like, oh my God, if I'm eating this, I might as well just eat the whole thing. How do you do that? And that is it, right? That is the sober eating method. That is how you find freedom. And it starts with connecting to your hunger and fullness cues. It starts with understanding the difference between, am I having a craving and do I want something, and letting yourself want something without it being punishable without needing to feel like you need to punish yourself for it, right? Without it being punishable. And another thing that helped me, and that also helps a lot of the women I work with, is adopting an 80-20 mindset. You've probably heard of this idea before. This is not a unique idea. It's pretty simple. It means that 80% of the time you focus on eating foods that are high nutritional value, right? That nourish your body, that give you energy and support your goals. But the other 20% is, can be less high nutritional value. And when you allow yourself to learn how to do this, that's when your nervous system starts to understand that you don't need to have black and white as the North Star for your eating choices. You don't need to have good and bad. You don't need to have right or wrong. The thing with the 80-20 though, is that sometimes people can apply it like a rule, right? Like they literally try to eat 80-20. And within my sober eating framework, I don't really teach it that way. Like the 80-20 is applied differently depending on how you eat, what your eating style is, what's going on in your life. Are you traveling? Are you on vacation? Right? So there's nuance to how you individually, uniquely can apply 80-20. But the 80-20 mindset is a complete game changer because it takes the pressure off. You no longer feel like you have to be perfect. And it allows you to let go of any guilt. And it definitely did that for me. And so if you find yourself stuck in this cycle, if you find yourself labeling food as good or bad, you're definitely not alone in this. So many people, myself included, as I mentioned, have struggled with this, but there is a way out. And I shared some of those with you today. And I want to leave you with this before I share what I told you I was going to share with you before. What you want to do is you want to start challenging the labels in your mind. So what can you do if you start noticing that you are going back to black and white thinking? You are going back to good or bad. So the next time you have that thought, you could pause. And I talk about the pause a lot because the pause is really so powerful. And you can ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this food? And am I willing to see this food as neutral? Okay, so those are two questions you could ask yourself. And I know that it can be hard sometimes to do this on your own. It can be hard sometimes to activate the mindfulness that you need to really make these huge emotional, behavioral changes. And so that is why I'm inviting you to my new Eat Freely, Live Fully mentorship. Because this mentorship I created, it is a coaching and accountability support system and experience because we need support system. When we want to change behaviors, we need emotional support, we need tactical support, and we need them together. And so this mentorship is that. It's designed to help you understand your food triggers, reconnect with your hunger and fullness cues, and you will learn to eat whatever you want without rules. You'll learn to regulate your emotions, and you will learn to harmonize your hormones. So if weight loss is your goal, this will happen naturally. And you don't need to count macros. You don't need to feel deprived. You don't need to take medication. You don't need to do any of this. And I'm so excited about this mentorship that as a trial, right? If you wanted to just give it a shot, you want to see what it's about, you could join for 30 days for $33. Okay. You can just try it. No strings attached. You're not going to be automatically billed, right? I will invite you to stay though, because I think you're going to love it, but you can just try. All the details are in the show notes. There's bonuses that you get when you join for the $33, right? There's even bonuses in the $33. So click on the show notes, click on the link, and I hope I see you there because this kind of support system is really, really life-changing. And that's it for me. So as always, I'm wishing you a great week. And remember that whatever you are working towards, however you want to feel in your life, you can do it. And you are worth it. So until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.